All right, I'm going to invite the select board to come back and take their seats. And I'll ask you all, is there a little stack of warnings over there, Lori?
No, they're not.
Okay. But there were some town reports, and I see a lot of you brought yours along.
You need to.
So, oh, I have one, yes. I'm just inviting everybody to look at the articles and see, is there anything other than the budgets, the general fund expenditures and highway fund expenditures that people want to talk about?
Beverly here, for those of you who don't know. On page 59, Roger has put in this note that all commercial activity structures and uses require a zoning permit except for home business category A. And I think grandfathered businesses need to be added to that.
Can you point out where on page 59 you are?
The very bottom paragraph,
Oh, I see, in bold.
yes.
Okay, so your point, Beverly, is that you think that that's not the only exception
That's
to
right.
that? Okay.
Grandfathered businesses need to be added to that exception. You know, I'd also like to point out that we had COVID for 3 years, which really was hard on businesses. And the business environment right now is not wonderful. And I think it's really a waste of time for Roger to be even thinking about this. Because business owners is where the money comes from in a community. It's our taxes that pay the bills.
Okay,
And I don't think any of our businesses have probably outgrown where they are because of the conditions of the world that we live in.
Lou?
I'll expose my ignorance. I thought that at one time there was talk about a proposal for inclusionary language for discussion or vote at town meeting. Am I just forgetting something, or what happened to it?
Inclusionary language?
Yes.
I never knew anything about that.
I know we did a advisory vote last year on the question.
So this doesn't have anything to do with what Beverly was talking
No,
about?
no,
This
this
is about, yes.
Yeah.
And I believe that the select board can report on that.
Yes. The select board voted to endorse the Declaration of Inclusion.
Okay. So that then is the town's position,
That was the select board vote.
representing the town. Okay.
And based on that, Dummerston Cares, Katie Bird then withdrew the idea of submitting a
Yes,
petition. So
right.
that's why you're not seeing it now.
I see. Got it. Thank you.
You can
Thank you.
If you, let me just say, if you're not sure what that inclusionary resolution was about, if you look on page 77, you'll
Yep.
see the minutes from last
I
year's
saw that.
town meeting. And that will explain what it was. It was approved by the voters. Now the select board has done the same. You'll see in the Views of Dummerston that's about to come out, an article by Mike Merwicki asking us to please institute that, but it's too late. You guys beat him to it, right? It's done. It's officially approved by the judicial body and we're all set.
And I just re-comment on one of the town auditors, point out that on page 42, under the Dummerston Cares article, they have brought that up to date and mentioned that it has been approved by the select board and that therefore they weren't petitioning. So I think the information from all the different pages, all the information is in the
Okay.
town report.
That's right. You can see on page 42, about 2/3 of the way down, update on January 25th, 2024. That's what we were referring to. Okay. Carolyn?
So Cindy, I just want to know what happens with Bev's comment. I mean, she made a comment on that statement on page 59, but then what happens to that?
Is Roger here?
No,
Okay.
I made a note.
I'm sorry?
I made a note. So
Do you,
since he submits to the auditors every year, I made a note. I always start right away with a new note to go over what's in the town report if corrections are needed.
I would really like the select board to address this with Roger.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I was just.
So I was assuming that Roger's statement here applied to new businesses being proposed, not existing businesses.
It says all,
Uh-huh.
The word all is in there.
Yeah,
and that needs to be clarified very clearly.
yeah, my guess is,
What if we add in all new commercial activity?
Or new commercial?
Yeah, you could, that, I would be
That would grandfather.
satisfied with that.
It's an option.
Roger will be in the office tomorrow morning. It might be helpful if somebody called him to have a conversation with him about this before you make a change to his report.
yeah. So Bev, are you saying that you don't think that if a business like yours wanted to change your uses, you wouldn't require a permit for that? You'd be grandfathered for that as well?
No, if we changed our uses, we wouldn't be.
So what
I mean,
would
that's-
you not have to get a new permit for? What are these?
We are, I mean, to me, what that statement looks like is he wants to have every business come in and he wants to evaluate every business and make sure that they aren't any bigger than they were and that they haven't changed one little iota. I mean, that's what that looks like to me.
yeah, I think it's just unclear language that we can make sure gets corrected.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Geraldine, for bringing us back to that.
Cindy, now I will speak about something I know about, rather than ignorance. The planning commission and the board of selectmen have complete control over the language in the bylaws. I know that Roger does his best to administer the bylaws to the letter of the law, even sometimes when it's unpopular. We were just involved in a neighborhood case where that was the case. So it's really up to the planning commission, if clarification is needed, to propose something in the bylaw.
Okay. All right. Are there
Another
any?
topic?
I'm sorry?
Another topic?
Yes.
You mentioned in passing the views of Dummerston. I hear that it may be out, it may include candidate statements, but I haven't seen a copy in the mail. And does anyone know what the status of it is?
It's available on the town website.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I asked the question myself a couple of days ago when it would be coming out in the mail. Anybody in the room know?
I know it was at the post office yesterday.
Oh,
Oh, no. It's on its way then.
it is.
A week or so.
Yeah. a week or so.
Yeah.
If we could go back to zoning, state statute does speak of grandfathering, and we at least need to go by that, if
Yeah.
nothing else.
Okay. Are there any articles anyone would like to address or ask questions about before we get into the budget? Jody?
I'm curious about Article 5, and I know it's in the capital fund, but is this going to be a bigger tractor? I mean, that's pretty expensive, to replace what other tractor, and why?
Page are we on?
78, Article 5.
Yeah, as I understand it, and Lewis can correct me if I'm wrong, but our Kubota tractor that the town has is a little underpowered for some of the implements we're using, and it's putting a lot of stress on the tractor. We've had to spend money on repairs over the last year. So the plan is to get a newer, larger tractor. There may be a change made in this article in that Lee is considering both Kubota and other brands, so we may generalize the article at town meeting instead of specifying that it be a Kubota tractor.
What kind of implements are your tractor too small to do?
I think the flail mower.
The mower has, the mower's not gonna change. It's gonna be the same mower. The, mower, the arms on the back of the Kubota that we have right now have broken because the mower, when it's so far out, it lifts up. When it lifts up, it puts too much torque on the.
Well, is that the over the wall?
Oh no, that's the same mower. We have the flail mower that goes along.
Is that the one that makes such a mess of the trees and you cut it?
No.
Because I'm looking at somebody else who's doing something in Dummerston now, and they're doing something nicely on the ground from what I can see, not the
Yeah.
mess of the other one that's been done. So I would encourage you not to do that anymore.
Jody, a little context. Let me point out that on page 38, the capital fund budget plan
Yeah, I see
shows that
that.
this is replacing a 2013 Kubota tractor, which had a lifespan of 10 years. So it's past due being replaced.
And there's actually one of the another issue with the Kubota tractor that we have now, and another reason that we're also looking, or Lee's also looking at different tractors, is the Kubota tractor is looking at a $10,000 repair. That is when it gets up to the mileage it's at, that they say you're supposed to do to it. And a $10,000 repair is quite an expensive repair to have done. And when it's undersized for what it's being used for.
But
Have they got any?
Harold?
Got any idea on trade-in value on the existing? Or aren't they trading it in?
It's the same as with the trucks. We'll get something from the dealer, and then we'll try to put it out for more. If we think we can get more for it, like the last dump truck that they traded in.
I understand, I know.
We got a lot more. We got a lot more for that than they were even thinking about giving us for trade for it. So
we would sell it.
Depending on how much they give you for trade, what you can sell it for. Try to do the best.
Lou?
This reminds me of last year's discussion about a fire truck. So, does the town or Lee have any estimate of what the net difference might be? Well, is that the $85,000, or is it $85,000 less the value of the current Kubota?
Yeah, correct. It's the $85,000 is for the tractor, and then we'll get the money for the trade. So it should be, it'll be less.
Where will the money from the trade go to?
It goes back to the
General fund, right?
Highway.
Highway fund.
capital fund.
Oh, capital fund.
Because
Is
it's a
that
capital.
showing in the proposed capital budget?
It's not on the capital budget because we don't know what we're going to get for it at this time.
Ruth, can you comment on that?
Yeah, so if you look at page 9, the current, what happened this past year in the capital fund, you can see we show you what the net is after the sale of the vehicle that we have. So that we do report that information.
After the fact?
Yeah, these reports are what the past fiscal year
Okay,
happened.
okay. So we would see that in next year's town report, is that,
So you would see that in next year's town report.
thank you.
Paul,
How many hours does the old tractor have on it?
A little over 5,000.
And what's the horse?
I'm not sure.
I think that's a 55 horsepower.
50, yeah,
60.
60, yeah.
60.
And
Is it
what are they
60?
looking at increasing?
75. 75.
Thank you.
Ruth,
I will also just point out that on page 37, we have the hours of the equipment and where we know it, where we had the right report, the mileage for the year. So that
So I
we're
guess
trying to cover as much
guess I was wrong.
information as we can.
so a month and a half, 2 months ago, it was 42.
Right.
So that's more correct than what I thought it was higher than
I'm
that.
sure we put on more miles since then.
We have,
Hours.
yes, we have not many more though, hours.
All right. Gail,
When we get to discussing the general fund, I noticed that there is no budget request from the community center and one other organization, the recreation board. And so you're asking for funds without those two. Has there been anything supplemental come in from them, or how will that be addressed
No.
if somebody wanted to put some money for the community center?
They did not request any funds from the town this year.
Yeah, so are they going to, can they just bring it up at town meeting to vote on it?
No.
They don't, the community center historically hasn't asked for funds. They haven't asked for funds. That was when the when the community center first came, that was the deal with the town was the group was gonna take over the community center, run it, and whatever they got for rent and stuff, they were gonna pay for whatever they needed to pay for. So they weren't gonna ask the town for money, and they have asked for some through the ARPA, and other times when it's been big expenditures for different things, they've had to ask for it. But for the most part, for the heating and stuff like that, they have not asked for it in years. And the rec board had stopped asking for money a few years ago. And they just feel like they can do it with what they get from the kids when they participate in things, that everything has to be.
Right, and the rec board also got money from the ARPA fund.
Right. Well, but those ARPA funds are gonna run out, and so probably in a
Right.
couple years, there maybe start being some requests. We won't worry about it now.
No, not today.
yeah, they've got more than $10,000 in the rec fund. That's pretty good. All right. Yes,
I have a question. What is ARPA? And where do the funds come from and what are they used for? Who has to apply for them? Do we just get them automatically
Okay,
or?
let's see. It's the American Recovery.
Recovery Plan Act, but
Okay.
how do you get it?
Every town in Vermont was allocated a certain amount based on population, I believe. And Dummerston received 522,000. Is that about? Maybe a little change. And over the past year, groups have requested funds, and we've talked with them and evaluated them and allocated funds to certain groups. Some we didn't. And we have about $14,000 that hasn't been allocated at this point.
Okay, I was just curious because.
Yeah.
So it's federal money.
Right.
It was federal money that was for economic recovery after the COVID
Is it
pandemic.
COVID money?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, it's sort of a windfall that's one-time funding that were able to put into a lot of different things around town and save taxpayers money in many cases, but also do things that we wouldn't have been able to afford to do, like improvements to this building. There's a lot of improvement. If you go downstairs, it's all been, the drainage has been fixed, the floor's been redone, new windows. So it's been a great opportunity, but it is gone now, or almost gone.
Okay, thank you.
If you look on page 17, you'll see some details on where that money has gone. Will.
Sorry,
Oh,
my
hold on,
hand
I'm
keeps
sorry,
going
hold
up.
on. Paul had his hand up earlier and I wanted to call him first.
Well, I wanted to get back to the tractor.
Go for it.
So, I attended one of the select board meetings, while they were doing their budget, and the tractor came up, and I asked the question about, it seems like a pretty good tractor, and why are you trading it? And the conversation came up about the flail mower. And it seems to me, the tail's wagging the dog. If the flail mower is too big for the tractor, why not get a smaller flail mower and save $85,000 on the tractor? Now Louis just mentioned it needs about $10,000 worth of work, but what would that $10,000 do? Would it extend the life of the tractor for another 5 to 10 years? And 4,200 hours plus does not, in my mind, seem to be an overused diesel tractor. Diesel engines run for an extended period of time, and those hours seem low, relatively low for a diesel. So, I think, just my own personal opinion, it seems to me more thought ought to be put into the alternatives, and can you fix what you've got and extend its life, or can you get a smaller flail mower?
Paul Adler, did you want to amend what Paul was saying before the answer comes?
Just a quick comment that basically when you get that kind of an hours on a tractor, you're talking about changing the injectors.
Well, it's the DIF, that's going to be what's going to cause that.
And it's expensive.
Yeah, it's a minimum of $10,000 to do that. And the flail mower, if you go to the capital budget, is on there. We have this on there. That's going to be replaced in 2 years. So you go.
Right, but replace it this year, get a smaller one. And not buy a tractor.
I mean, that flail mower is expensive. What's the?
20,000.
And to try to, yeah.
We try to rely on Lee's expertise with questions like that, and he made a compelling argument to us.
The first flail mower we bought, I don't know how long ago now, when we first got the tractor, was too small. It got beat up too much by stones along the road and stumps, and so we were having repairs of that. We wore it out in a short period of time. That's why we upgraded to a heavier duty flail mower. And so now we find, well, we've got to upgrade the tractor to a heavier duty tractor, to the heavy duty.
It's one of those things when you listen, it's just like the gas job pickup we had, the Dodge we had. You listen to the salesman tells you, yes, this is going to be more than enough power to get you someplace. And that truck, I don't know, a few times I was going up Mountain View, and you couldn't go up there definitely without the plow, with the plow down. You could only have a half a load of sand in it to get up the hill. This was told to us that this was going to be enough truck to do this. And at some point, you listen to somebody. Mm-hmm. They told us that tractor was going to be enough to handle what we have. It wasn't. It's, you learn. Hopefully you'll learn from your mistakes. It's going to a 75 horsepower tractor, and it's
it might not be the Kubota because it sounds like the Kubota's having this problem with the diff. We're pricing it out, trying to get the best price for the strongest tractor we can get. I mean, if you got the tractor that you really should get, nobody in this room would vote for anything. I mean, would vote for it. You're talking double if you've got the real size tractor that you should get. In my opinion, the tractor you should get. Lee feels like this one here, the ones that we're looking at is the size he needs. You know, I'm gonna go with that. I myself would go for the more heavy duty tractor. And then you might get more years out of it. But Lee came to us and he came with this price and said he could get the tractor for this price. If it was me, there's no way I'd ask for that tractor. I would go for a bigger tractor so it would last longer and it could do more. So.
Jenny?
Back on the tractor again because I had a follow-up question.
Let's try to wrap
earlier.
up the tractor.
Well, I want to ask something. And this goes along with all the other trucks or anything else that happens in Dummerston. You made a comment about you were told you would need to have something done to it. Do you know that you absolutely, the tractor needs to be done,
Yes.
that it's broken down in that part?
I was actually driving it when it broke down going up the road and we brought it up there and that's when they said.
So it broke down?
Yes.
Okay, well, that makes a difference rather than just buying
No,
it because somebody says at so many miles you're gonna need to do this.
It goes into a burn off and it was going into too many burn offs in a short period of time. I'm driving down the road and the tractor stopped on East-West Road. And it had to be towed up to the thing and then it had to be hauled up to Pinnacle View for them to work on it. And they put a Band-Aid on it for now. And if I had the tractor myself, I could fix the tractor, but it wouldn't be legal to be driving.
Okay.
So they could all be fit. You can fix anything, but you want to have something reliable. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Harold?
What did they use that other than for mowing? That's all it's used for?
No.
What else?
It's used for blowing the leaves.
They have, what are the accessories they have with this existing tractor?
It has a blower on the back, so it blows the leaves out of the ditches. And the new tractor will have a bucket on it. The tractor we have does not have a bucket on it, which it was, again, I think you should never buy a tractor without a bucket on it.
Right.
So.
Right. I see some firefighters in the back. Does anybody have questions about the fire apparatus?
We put the tractor issue up there to divert attention from everything else.
Jody?
Well, I just want to say to the firemen out back that it sounds like it's a much more reasonable organization now than it might have been in the past, and I hope they stay that way.
Touché.
Bravo. Ruth?
I'd also like to point out that we've got a lot of extra information this year in the town report from the fire department, and if we look starting on page 51, not only do we have the annual report, but they also have their financial reports that they share with everybody, so I think that's really appreciated after all the questions. So please make sure to look at that information in the town report also.
Thank you.
There is going to be a mistake in the report. It's on the Lydia Pratt library on page 61. It's on the town support. It says on there 35,000.
That's what they had originally asked for when we went through our budgeting. It is not that, so you'd have to go to the, and I was trying to look it up exactly where it was, what page, but
It's 22,000.
22,040.
yeah, 22,040 should be that number there.
Well, I think you'd find that also on the fire department one, if you look at their town, Dummerston proposed budget for the support versus what you're giving. Or what you proposed, I should say, for this.
And where's that?
That would be page 53, under town of Dummerston appropriation, they're asking for 101,968, and I think you put 50,000 in plus another 25 for capital, if I'm correct? Somewhere in that
Yeah,
vicinity.
21.
Yeah, so that's another one.
That's actually not an error, that's what we had proposed. And
Right, but-
the report was already done and finalized on our portion. Next year, you'll see it in there as an actual budget.
Right, but he was pointing out
Yeah.
one that was that way, so we might as well notify that that's a second one.
Yeah, the library isn't labeled proposed, the fire department is, but
Yeah.
yes, it doesn't match what's in the actual
Exactly.
town budget.
What is the correct number of percentage?
For the fire department?
Yeah.
It sounds like 50,000 for the town of Dummerston appropriation, I'm sorry?
50,000 and 26,000. 50,000 in
So
the
76.
operating fund, 26
26 for
in the
capital.
fire department's capital.
Ruth?
Right, speaking to the library budget, the difference here is the library board approves the library budget. So for purposes of words like proposed, the library board budget is what they adopted, but that does not mean that the select board approves an appropriation to match the budget. But the reason that the town report does not say proposed for the library is it isn't proposed, only the library board votes on the library budget, but the select board votes on the appropriation afterward. And so that's why there's unfortunately a mismatch in the two reports.
So maybe instead of saying town support, they should say town support requested.
Yes, or something, we can raise that with the library board. Make some notes.
I'm making notes.
I am also making notes.
Thank you, Ruth. Lou?
Continuing the journey from equipment to things that last longer, like the library. On page 32, listing of 2023 bridges and structures inventory. And I recall that the east-west bridge at the east of the center, at the bottom of the hill, where the 90-degree turn is, I believe must be Bridge B-18, built in 1935. And I recall that years ago now, that bridge was ranked very high, both at the regional level and the state level in terms of need and priority. What's happened on that? What's the current thinking of what to do about that bridge and the alignment of east-west road in that wonderful traffic calming spot?
You know,
Does anyone know?
no, I don't. Nothing's going to happen soon,
Yes.
as far as I know. It will be a very expensive fix when it does come, and so we're looking to eventually have state aid in fixing that bridge and the approach to it. So, there are lots of other towns looking for Agency of Transportation funds also, so we don't always get the funding that we'd like.
I know the process. Has Dummerston weighed in on the critical need for that bridge
I think
to
when
be at least structurally sound?
we meet with the Agency of Transportation shortly, actually early spring each year, and go over priorities. They set funding that will be available to us, what our emergency allocation would be based on our town highway budget. So that would be a time to go over that with them and maybe get some idea when we might be able to address that.
I know a corner was knocked off of it several years ago, and so it's obvious in terms of need.
Yeah, the trucking company that took that piece of concrete out paid for the repair of that.
Thank you.
Are there any, I'm sorry? Are you done?
Yep.
Are there any particular lines, budget lines in the general fund that people are concerned about or have questions about? Jody?
Yes, it was just brought up earlier, and I would like to request that the select board do more about the speed in town. It's everywhere. If anybody's here from the sheriff's department or whatever, they're here at times it's not happening, and they're just sitting there doing nothing. I happen to be standing out in front of a house as you just get off of Route 5 on Middle Road, and the speed of the traffic was unbelievable. And the woman there said that it's just awful. And I've been in other places in town where the speed is just awful, and they don't even stop in the center. You sit in the town clerk's office and you look at them going flying by. And yeah, well, we've been trying to fight this for a number of years, but we're not getting enough support to get the appropriate people there. Can I be deputized to have a little gun to stand somewhere? I mean, you're not a bang bang gun, but
both.
I mean, and it's not only on East Western Middle, it's on all the back roads. Kipling Road is terrible. You know, our road,
My
during
road is
school
terrible.
time or work time is, terrible. Your
Yeah.
road is terrible. But there are certain times of day, and the people that we all are hiring are not there those times of day.
It was brought, excuse me, Cindy. That was brought up at the meeting, at our regular meeting again tonight. You probably can guess who brought it up about speeding. And he's been bringing it up for quite a while, that the sheriff's department is not doing what I feel they should be doing. But we have the state police running through stop signs too, and speeding on our road. So it's just a free-for-all, and it's ridiculous that we contract with the sheriff's department. They say they want to go to a better system. Work on the system you have to begin with before, and get that set, and then come to us, because the town actually gets a good portion of those fines. And I don't know if that's why they're not doing it, because they're not getting it. They're only getting their contract. I have no idea why they're not doing it. They sit in town for 4.5 hours, and you will look at their thing and it says 0 tickets, 0 warnings. Just put your blue light on, for crying out loud, and it's going to slow people down.
Didn't we just hear there were $2,000 that came in?
I'd like to see where that was at, though, at the governor. That was on their governor's highway safety grant they used.
Oh, I thought it was fines.
That was fines that they said they had gotten. They've always given us that part of the bill, and they give us a STARS report, and they break it down on billed hours and non-billed hours. The last time they didn't do a non-billed hours, but then they come up and said that they did $2,000 worth of fines. I would have liked to have seen it. They've given it to us all the other times. And that time they didn't, and then they said, well, we did $2,000 worth of fines.
Well, many years ago, we had quite a committee doing this.
I'm gonna call on somebody else.
Well, I just want to say how many years this has been going on with the committee.
I think we're aware of that.
I'm gonna get gavelled, that's all right, she's gonna kick me out, but
I'm
it's
not
about
gonna
time
kick
to
you out,
do
but I'm
something
gonna
about
ask
it.
you to be quiet so that I can call on somebody else who hasn't spoken yet this evening.
Sorry,
In the back.
I was just curious, how many hours do we contract the sheriff's department a week?
It's 22 hours a month.
22 a month?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was a weekly thing, that's why I was curious. I mean, over the summer, I called for a VIN verification, and they showed up over a month and a half later and said that they hadn't been in anybody in town, that's why I was curious.
And said that they hadn't
They hadn't had anybody in town in that amount
to
of
do
time.
VIN.
To do anything, yeah.
Well, they certainly were in the town patrolling, so, no?
I'd say accountability is to start.
Yeah.
Paul?
We had an incident earlier this year where somebody came speeding up the road and they decided to park their vehicle on our stone wall. And had to be towed off. We called the state police and
They were really good.
they were really good. And she said, look, if you need, somebody to come down here and park their car and write tickets, we'd be happy to do it.
Well, why aren't we doing
But they're
it?
not chasing DUI.
And this is the state police,
Yeah.
So
We
something we
had
might
discussed switching
No,
over
it's
to
not.
the state police for traffic control. And they gave us a proposal. At the time, it was much more expensive than the sheriff's rate. And they were only have off-duty officers who were looking to make a little extra money available to patrol at that time. So we kept our contract with the sheriff.
Yeah, I
But
haven't seen the
we-
sheriff at all. Yeah, we've been here 2 years.
Ms. Foster?
What gets me is that the dirt roads, they're 35 miles an hour. They should not be 35 miles an hour. They should be 25 the most.
Right.
But it
It's
doesn't
a
make a
state
difference.
statute
No.
that.
No, I didn't,
Our dirt road is 35, and I venture to say I see cars doing
Oh, yeah.
easily
40,
60.
oh yeah, they run me off by your place all the time.
Yeah.
Yes. Lou?
On topic, I noticed the sheriff department on Middle Road past our house quite frequently. It's always an unmarked car, black.
With a red plate, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I can almost tell you who's in it, but.
So they may be around and we may not think they are because they're in an unmarked car.
Well, and are they doing anything for us when they, or are they just getting from A to B like
Yeah.
everyone else in
Right.
a hurry?
Yeah.
They're billing you for it.
Well, I was sure that everybody wanted to talk about the budget. And I think I'm wrong.
Kubota tractors, anyone?
Yeah.
In the views that are coming out, Todd wrote a wonderful article explaining what the select board has been through the last several months in developing the budget. There's been a lot of input, and the select board, I think, has really struggled and looked at a number of options because everyone's taxes are going to go up. Not as much from the town, but more from the state, and that's kind of unknown right now. But we've noticed in the budget, salaries and everything that goes with salaries, fringe benefits, I shouldn't say fringe, are all higher. Part of it, and Todd explains again very well, the cost of living increases and what hasn't happened over past years. And so there really shouldn't be objections this year. We're catching up, and we're going to be the next couple of years catching up even more because we're not there yet. So thank you, Todd, for explaining as well as you did in the views. The other thing, the capital budget next year is going to go much, much, much higher than this year, looking at the projected budget. Because again, in the past, we have not funded things that needed to be funded, and it's all catching up. So I just want people to be aware of that if you've got complaints about the budget part with salaries and capital, talk to the select board or anybody else to get more information, because they really struggled with this year. So thank you.
I'm going to call on myself as a citizen now rather than being the town moderator. I would really urge, as I think is best practice with any capital budget, that we raise a steady number of dollars in taxes to fund the capital budget each year, going up for inflation, but not these ups and downs. It's hard on people, it's confusing, and it messes with the tax rate unnecessarily, especially when you go from a low number to a really high number.
Right, we went with a low number last year and put what we would have put in the capital into the structures fund because we felt we needed to beef up that fund for bridges and culvert work, since we can't always rely on the state for funding 90% of these projects.
I remember that, and it made sense, but when I look at
Yeah.
taxes raised projected out in the future, 330, 225, 150, 250, 100, 150, 100, 200, it's all over the map, and if it could be spread out more evenly, that, in my mind, that makes a lot of sense.
That was to try to keep the bottom line above, trying to keep it right around 200,000, the amount that we have in the capital. The next year, we're going to start, one of the reasons it's going up to 350 is we're going to start paying for the fire truck. But we talked to the fire department and we're going to put them, so we don't have to make payments like that. It's going to be where it is, so it's not going to be a payment. It will be a bigger number there, but we'll see where it is. So we'll have to start saving ahead to, so you've got 5 lines right there with 113,000. And if we had them in the capital budget before, and for the fire truck, the bottom, those numbers would have been higher, but they wouldn't have been as high because would have been planning over more years to do it.
I'll repeat myself a little differently and say that the estimated balance forward can fluctuate wildly. The idea of taxes raised is what ought to be much more stable and increasing with inflation. Thanks.
Okay, so noted.
Me again. I do have concerns. A majority of this board has been here for a few years, and I guess salaries had not been increased as time went on. And I am concerned that all of a sudden it's whoop, we've got this great increase. And I have no problems with what we're paying the town clerk or the workers or whatever. But I wished it had come maybe half this year and half next year, or it had come every year as it went along. The other thing that I want to ask, and I guess I'm going to ask Todd because he did the work, why it seems like Guilford was not considered when you did the town crew payments. And why not Guilford? Because Guilford has always been kind of the comparable to Dummerston, not Putney, which is much bigger, or Newfane, or those others. So why was Guilford not included in that?
I'm still working on the comparisons. We talked about this and we ended up getting a report from, I think I still have it here, the grand list values for each town, et cetera, et cetera. But in the end, so if you look, this will be me. So look at Guilford and looking at Dummerston if you're going to hire a road crew person. The hiring of that road crew person is not dependent on the grand list of Guilford or Dummerston, right? You have to pay that person what that person's worth, just as far as dollars, right? So you can compare benefits, and things look a little bit different. We don't offer family insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have the numbers hopefully by town meeting, and we'll compare them. So Guilford, Newfane, Putney, Westminster. But you can't just say we're going to. I mean, it's like me saying I'm going to compare to Newfane, and you say we're going to compare to Guilford. That really doesn't work. You can't pick a town. You kind of have to look at the whole area and figure out what the balance is. So if I'm a road crew person moving to this area, and I want to apply for jobs, the amount that I'm going to get paid, does it make sense that that person's not going to look at Guilford and go, they're equal to Dummerston, or Putney has a higher grand list value? Those things are completely transparent and not anything any employee would look at. Because it doesn't
That's
affect.
not what I'm asking about.
Okay, so
I'm just asking about the comparison. I mean, you could always go to Wyndham Regional Commission and you could look at all the facts about all the towns around. And you're taking a look at Putney, and that's a much bigger town with much other things going on, you know, commercial and housing and everything else and roads. And you compare that to Dummerston, it's not comparable. I don't, in my mind.
in what way, I guess?
I don't think it's comparable in the amount of work and they've got all these schools and everything else in there and they have to take care of.
The road crew does?
Huh?
The road crew does?
Well, to get to them or whatever. But I'm just saying, I think it's not as comparable as Guilford would be. And I don't know what Guilford, I don't have a clue about what they are.
One of the things.
And so that's all I asked you is why it wasn't considered.
Guilford specifically.
Okay, no, he can answer that.
He just.
What were you going to say?
No, I guess I'm not sure what Guilford or any of these towns. I guess the comparison in what way towards what part of our budget are you asking about?
I'm talking about salaries and benefits, and all. I know that not everybody's comparable on benefits and things like that. So you have to look at the whole picture. I mean, I've been through budgets with school boards and everything else. I'm familiar with budgets, and you have to look at the whole picture. And that was my main question: is why wasn't Guilford one of those towns that was looked at?
I don't have an answer to that question because I don't have the number.
All right, so that's very, that's okay.
Yep.
Todd, am I correct in extrapolating from what I think you're trying to say, that a road crew person earns this much money? That's a normal salary for a road crew person, no matter what town they're working in.
It may be different from town to town.
And that's not gonna work for us forever.
Right. So yeah, there's two parts. Well, okay, so two parts. The road crew is one side of the pay. The other side are the people that already work on the road hiring. Is the people already working on the road crew and already working for the town clerk. So the town clerk, the treasurer, the people we pay.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that I'm going to go out. We already decided some number of years ago before I got here that they were making X amount of money. So I wouldn't go back and reevaluate what they're making 4 years ago or 5 years ago, because somebody had already decided that's what they're getting paid. So all the increases are based on cost of living allowances and keeping up with what they should be making based on what they were making 5 years ago. So a comparison there doesn't seem to matter a lot. It's not nothing. The road crew and the highway crew, we went through a lot of discussions. And Paul, you were there for some of them.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out.
I saw them.
Trying to figure out concerns with hiring people in the future when we need people retire, and what are we going to need to pay folks in order to bring them on board. And the problem we have, since we're behind in the COLA, if you read the views, it talks about this. We'd already be at the $25 we think we need to hire people had we kept up with COLA over the last 4 years, and this wouldn't be an issue at all. But we didn't. And so now we need to because again, if you think about it, if we hire somebody at $25 an hour, we can't have somebody on the road crew making $21.50 who's been there for 3 years or 4 years. And so it just required a sliding scale to catch up the COLA and get to where we need to be. But as Cindy pointed out, I'm still gathering the data from the towns. The survey from the Vermont League of Cities and Towns doesn't really give you the information you need to compare. And so I do want to look at all four. But once I have all four, then what are you going to do? Take an average, pick Guilford, pick Newfane. I mean, we could doctor it however we want. Let's just pick the lowest one and say that's what we're going to do, or let's pick the highest one. Hopefully we fit somewhere in the middle, which is what we're trying to do. I don't know if that's a full answer, but I do understand the question. And hopefully at town meeting I'll have those.
It's just frustrating because your budget's going up, and I know the school budget's going up. So
definitely.
Harold, you had your hand up.
Right in the paper today, the town of Marlboro, Vermont, is advertising for workers for their town crew, and they've got to be qualified in all of things from tractor, mowing, everything. $20+ just a little over $20 and some change is what they're advertising for a help.
We'll see if they get anybody.
Right. Well, that's the question.
Right. When we were doing the budget, Halifax had an ad for starting pay at $25.
Halifax.
Halifax. Putney They, in the
25.
neighborhood of 25 for starting.
And one issue is whether we require a CDL, a commercial driver's license. My guess is that Marlboro
I
position
don't know, it's
doesn't.
not too bad, I just, something it was in the comments
Yeah,
today.
those are all good points. And I talked to Lee yesterday or today and to see, because Putney advertised. And I'm like, what's the word on I haven't heard anything yet. And they're advertising another position now. It's like, what did they hire him at? Can we figure out? And my understanding is they hired him at $21.50, but without a CDL. So somebody's got to pay for the CDL, either the town or somebody. But it's the pay thing was a huge issue for the months we worked this, because it is a huge. And I think it's important. We talked about splitting it half this year, half next year. But as far as I'm concerned, if there's more to it than just right now. So in some world where you're saving money for retirement, you're putting money in funds or 401ks or IRAs or whatever you're doing, the town workers have been shorted for 4 years. And so putting it off another year doesn't get the situation right. So they're, in theory, behind on money they should have had that they don't have and they haven't gotten over the last 4 years. But we did talk about that, splitting it. And at some point we decided just not to do that, to get it caught up. And then, as the article says, whatever the cost of living is every year, that's just what they'll get. And that there's not a lot of debate there. So,
Ruth?
Speaking for myself and not as town auditor, I wanted to congratulate the select board for taking this hard issue on. As Zeke and maybe Maria knows, I've been standing here every year in pandemic saying we are not doing right by our employees. We cannot level fund and give nobody a raise when they're working during pandemic. So I think doing this now, even though it's hard, to reward the people who work so hard for the town is great. Thank you. Tammy?
Why wasn't the state money or the government money used to give the employees raises instead of doing it now?
the ARPA funds?
Yeah.
Can't be used for that.
I don't think it can be used for that. I'm not sure. Or can it? Okay.
Yes, it can. I was gonna say, there were some towns that actually did that, and they gave their employees pretty good sized bonuses for it. So yes, it could have been used for that.
Bonuses, not.
They could, no, they kept going into their salary, so it's now their salary. Their salary stayed up there, so.
But that money's gonna
According to their
disappear.
website, you can do that.
Right.
You could also apply for back wages and stuff on your returns, because I have another committee that I'm on. I'm the chairperson on the credit union, and we were able to redo our taxes for the last years because they're not for profit, and they got more additional funds for wages for employees.
Well, you got some extra funds.
Lou?
A different budget topic.
Thank you.
I'm always interested in the revenue side of things. And so I'm looking at page 24, and Ruth will probably redirect me to a more appropriate page. But at the bottom of 24, we have highway blasting and ledge crushing reserve fund. And we're looking for 27,000 plus revenue. I assume that someplace there may be an expenditure. If so, I'd like to know just what blasting and ledge crushing is the town interested in doing this year, and I hope they aren't going to use the Kubota.
Always comes back to the Kubota, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I had the same questions. So Zeke?
As far as I know, we're putting money in, we crush some gravel every year, and we're trying to get a reserve for when we have to crush stone to make gravel.
Okay. So this is more of the pit.
That is the pit, Lou.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not Middle Road.
Yeah.
Right, and that's for the pit. That we save up, it was supposed to be every 5 years, I believe the plan was, is to blast and crush every 5 years, but in the meantime, every year we have stuff still in the pit that we can crush, so you'll see that. So we do crushing all year, or not every year, but if every 5 years, we're supposed to do some blasting and crushing. And that's with Putney, they're supposed to be saving the same.
Yeah, this is actually a requirement of our interlocal agreement with the town of Putney.
Right.
But this is revenue. This is revenue.
If you look at page 19, it gives the report, tells you the balance.
19. Oh, here we go.
And also, if you look on page 78 under Article 8 is where that proposed revenue comes from. It's one of the articles that will be voted on, whether the town will put that money into the fund. So Article 8 asks the voters to raise $27,459. The statement of revenue proposed is if that that's what they propose, and that's what Article 8 relates to. So that's how those two tie together. And then if you look at the report of the reserve fund on page 19, you see what was in there last year, what taxes were voted last meeting, a year ago, what the balance in the fund is for the future needs for blasting and ledge.
Thank you, I knew that you could redirect me.
I'm going to change the subject to make sure before people start leaving that you know that on your ballot there will be 3 contested races. This is for the Wyndham Southeast School District Board. You remember now we don't have a school board anymore. It's for all of Wyndham Southeast. And there are representatives from different towns, several from Brattleboro, but we get to vote on all of them. There are 3 races where only one person will win. One race has 2 people running, and the other 2 races have 3 people running for 1 seat. You can see in the Commons from last week and the Reformer over time, statements from all those folks. There also is a forum on Monday night at 6:30. I'm moderating that, so that's why I know all about it. It's at the band's multi-purpose room, and it's also a hybrid meeting so you can participate via Zoom. And each of the candidates will be presenting themselves. There are a few who can't attend, and I think I'll be reading something they write.
What time was that again?
6:30 on Monday the 26th, this next Monday. So I really encourage you to look into that. They're very different people with different backgrounds, different ideas, and you gotta pick people. And don't just pick them, well, I don't know.
I just want to add that will be available on BCTV afterwards as well. We'll be recording that.
Thank you. Yes, BCTV will be handling the Zoom and all that wonderful stuff, and it'll be there for watching later. Jody?
I just wanted to make it very clear that we don't just vote for Dummerston.
Yeah.
Everybody votes on everybody.
Right.
Yep, there are 3 races on our Dummerston ballot. Yeah. I got an advanced copy. And I scribbled all over it, so there's no way I'm trying to hand it in as a...
Well, it's an unofficial one.
Yeah, very. Okay, are we all set? You ready to come to town meeting and vote?
I have one.
Yes.
You know, the select board, we get a stipend, but we're essentially volunteers. And most of us have, I think all of us have jobs. And so, you know, I started on the select board when I was still using a flip phone. So I don't know how long ago that was, which is one reason I'm not running again. If I can't remember how long I've been on here, I figure it's time to hang it up. But the amount of information coming to us and, from the federal government, from the state government, from the Wyndham Regional Commission, from the emergency management, you know, it's just, inundated with emails and flyers and meetings to attend and grant opportunities, and it's hard to keep your head above the water. And I don't know if you might want, just in the back of your mind, start thinking of maybe the town needs a part-time administrator or someone who can devote a portion of their week just to town business and be there to pick up on opportunities that might be there that just get lost in the email flood that's being sent to us. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
See?
I think that we should thank the select board for all your hard work and time, and be thankful for an in-person town meeting.
Yes. And to thank Zeke and Louis, who are going off the board. This would be their last select board meeting, I believe. The next one will be with whoever is voted in. So our thanks to you in addition to everyone.
What are you gonna do on Wednesday nights?
All right. Are we having lunch at town meeting or not?
Yes.
Yes. Your choice is Thai, Tex-Mex, or just a vegan. Yeah. So
I think it's not going to be quite as elaborate. but it
Don't
will be
believe.
tasty
Soup
and
and
delicious.
salmon and dessert.
I think it's a cash deal. I don't think they take credit cards.
I don't think they ever did.
No.
Thank you for coming, everyone. Meeting
Thank you.
adjourned.